Alrighty. I'm just waiting for that. There we go. Hi, my name is Madi. I'm the host of Respect My Region's Hire Women podcast, where we talk to influential women in cannabis and music. On today's show, we have the pleasure of speaking with Luna Sower, the VP of Business Development at Ispire. Today, we discuss the Emerald Cup, advice for female entrepreneurs, her career in cannabis, social equity and cannabis marketing opinions, and more. Hi, Luna. How are you today?
Hi, I'm wonderful. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate you so much.
Oh,
Thank
thank you so much for coming. Can you briefly describe for our audience what you do?
Yeah, so I'm the vice president of business development, which basically means I wear a little bit of marketing, a little bit of sales and branding for Ispire. We do dope hardware for the cannabis industry. So we do vaporizer, disposables, cartridges, batteries, and dab devices that use induction heating. And yeah, my role is basically I'm able to travel the world, speak on panels as a thought leader and experienced person in the cannabis space, kind of bridging the old world legacy market with the technology space as well. So I'm really lucky to be a female executive in a male dominated industry and really honored at the opportunity to share my story.
And it's so great to have you here and talking about Aspire. It really is a really cool company, and you've had such a career in cannabis leading up to it. You were a sales director for Jetty and Blue River. How
Mhm.
what did you take from those companies going into Aspire?
So I would say that the biggest things that I brought was the pain points of cartridge makers. So it really, in a lot of ways, it's like, what is how worth it is it for you to save 20 cents on a piece of hardware when it then leaks and the bud tender has to deal with the return. So I really learned how manufacturers spend a lot of time, energy, money on making the product, marketing the product, bringing it to market, telling the story around it. And then a lot of times they just will buy a cheap cartridge and have that battery or have that disposable poop out on them or have the cartridge leak. And it ends up not only having a bad experience for all of everyone involved on the business side, but really for cannabis as in and of itself. Some of these users are really purchasing a cannabis product for the first time. So good hardware can make or break someone's cannabis experience.
For sure, like sometimes you can buy like a $20 cart or a $20 pen, and then all of a sudden you're having problems just even putting it into the battery. There's always like little things here and there. They're not very reliable. So having like something that you can trust that you invest your money into, and it works is really the goal. But there was a low bar set for like these cart. You know what I mean? Like
I
how
know.
we've come a long way for sure.
It's like an afterthought when really it should be a forethought.
Right. It's like the most important part. It's like what's going to keep, the vibes going. You can't just you can't just have the bad stuff on the market these days. It's you really got to go with this fire.
Agreed.
Um, so what did you learn coming from how long have you been in the industry for, would you say?
Yeah, so I've technically been in the traditional market since 1996. I was in middle school when Prop 215 came out, and I was buying it, selling it, smoking it. My family and friends were growing it. People around me, it was everywhere. Being in the East Bay and in Oakland, it was kind of ubiquitous. It was all over the place. So I've really been doing it my entire life, but I'm actually trained as a teacher. I got my master's and credential in teaching English here at USF and studied feminist studies and social justice work at UC Santa Cruz. So really my training is in activism and in social justice. So it really dovetailed really nicely into the cannabis industry. Both my parents were also marketing executives. So I grew up kind of hearing them back and forth. My dad was at Apple and IBM in the early years, and my mom was the VP of marketing for Safeway when they created Safeway Select. So I got to hear all these terminologies that now I'm actually being able to use and employ myself. I never thought I'd be a businesswoman, but here I am advocating for the plant.
Hell yeah. And what got you inspired to really, put your whole job into the plant? What made you want to take that leap?
Well, being a patient, right? So as a teacher, you have a very finite schedule, and you're not really encouraged or supported to take care of yourself. So the commute, I have severe chronic pain due to a car accident injury in my neck. And not being able to medicate and support myself in the ways that I needed to as a teacher, I ended up going out on disability. And during that time, I ended up getting my first sales job in cannabis in late 2014. So I was able to see kind of an easy bridge how I can use my social justice background, my experience as a patient to advocate, and my love for the plant and my love for selling weed. I mean, I really do love being the plug. You know, my team and I, we always wear plug necklaces whenever we're at trade shows, as a nod to the traditional market of like, whatever you need, we've either got it and we can help you, or we know someone who can. So it really seems like a big difference to go from public school teaching into the cannabis industry, but in a lot of ways, education, advocacy, public health, human rights, all of these things are really, really tied together. So it was a little bit of an awkward transition, but it's the best decision I've ever made, and I'm never going back.
Yeah, and speaking of activism, can you tell us a little bit about your time teaching and doing social work for the Santa Cruz County jails?
Yeah, so while I was at UC Santa Cruz, I studied under Angela Davis and Bettina Apteker, two really famous Black Panther, Angela Davis and Bettina Apteker, who fought for the free speech movement in Berkeley, and really was able to. I was an advocate at the jail level as a pre and post release services case manager, but also as a jail librarian and did drug counseling. So really worked with them to understand how, you know, specifically with women, how to kind of better where they're at in life and try to stay out of the system. And then when I graduated, I worked at San Quentin, working with HIV positive prisoners being released to the 8 Bay Area counties, and made sure that they had all the services that they needed as well. So got a really good experience in the nonprofit side, the advocacy side, the case management side, which translates well because obviously we're in a drug war, and a lot of what we fight for is around decriminalization. So really, it's been like a nice little overlay into just me wanting to just kind of free plant medicine in general. Advocating for cannabis businesses, really, I was able to get that start by my advocacy through my work in Santa Cruz. It's interesting. You must have found that on my LinkedIn.
Yes, I'm definitely a LinkedIn stalker. I love to look at people's like
Go
whole
for it.
history because it's so cool. LinkedIn is just a wonderful place to see your work history, you know what I mean? We can have like these conversations where, you know, you can have an elevator pitch of like, you know, 5 seconds into your life, but you really have put your time into the cannabis industry and it shows. So, it's really cool to see how much you've done. So how is there a connection with you and like the jails for you to want to be into that system?
You know, I feel like, first of all, we're all paying the taxes on it. Secondly, I have white privilege, white female blonde privilege, and get, you know, so I really, there's a huge element of making sure that no one's left behind as we're kind of speculating and making money in the business space, who's serving time in jail, whose voices are being heard. And so I feel like there's a really fluid balance between what's happening in the prison system right now and what's happening outside in the advocacy work. I just went to Spain, where there's, you know, a big Spanibus and a big fair, and everyone comes from around the world, but it's still highly illegal there. Even in Germany, that just created a legal model. It's still not decriminalized there. People are still getting arrested. They're still getting their cars impounded. They're getting drug tested on the street with a tongue scrape. They're using a German test to identify if you have cannabis on your tongue, and are giving people DUIs and giving people charges. This happened while we were out there. And so it's just a reminder to not get so comfortable and be really grateful that what we have here in the United States, and especially in California and any regulated markets, is something really special. No matter how botched or frustrating it may be, we still have a lot more than, and have gone way farther than a lot of the world. They're decades behind us in policy and in social acceptance. And so we definitely have a lot of work to do around removing the stigma and the criminalization around this plant and other plant medicines as well.
For sure. And what did you see at Spanibus? I literally just wrote about it before it happened. Well, how was your time there?
It was beautiful. It was, there's over 300 active social clubs in Barcelona, so that's really exciting. And you cannot possess it, purchase it, or consume it anywhere outside of these social clubs. As I said, it's highly illegal. So they have a really strong, vibrant culture there. So they have,
Mm.
it's just like dispensaries were here back in the pre 215 days or pre 64 days, where, you know, there were, you know, people performing, DJs, lounges you could consume on site, which is no longer legal. So they have a very advanced, in a lot of ways, consumption lounge model, which was really exciting as well. But a lot of the people that were there were coming from the Czech Republic, Germany, South Africa, and other parts of Europe, like Portugal, that are a little bit farther along in their regulation, in their regulated space. So we're, as a cartridge company and hardware company, we had a lot of people approaching us at ICBC, which is the International Cannabis Business Conference, where I was lucky enough to be a panelist on one of their speaking panels about legacy markets. But at our booth, we had people coming up that were like, I'm starting my vape line in Poland. I'm starting my vape line in Denmark. I'm starting my disposable line in South Africa. We would love some samples and love to talk to you. So it's a very exciting new frontier for some of these smaller vape industries that are just coming out into the fold.
That's awesome. I love that you're open to like giving advice to people in other spaces as well, because that's super important. And that's something I've noticed about the marijuana industry in general, is just like the lack of gatekeeping, I think, because it's all about the people at the end of the day. You know what I mean? Anything that business owners can do to keep safety in mind when it comes to creating these products is like super important, especially if you have a business that has already done well. Giving advice to smaller brands is definitely really, really cool of you
It's
guys.
beautiful that you said that. I was just having a conversation this morning with my friend Jessica, one of the founders of one of the bigger distribution companies here in California, and she was asking me the same thing about Spanibus, and I said the same thing. I was like, I feel like we owe it to the world, based on the pitfalls and the obstacles that we've overcome. Like, we would be gatekeeping not to share this information. They need us. They need our expertise. They need our failures. They need our workarounds. They need our policies. Like, they literally need us so badly. Whether you hop on a Clubhouse or something like this, I try to speak as much as I can and as openly as I can, because at the end of the day, we all work for the plant, right? It doesn't matter what I'm wearing on my shirt. It doesn't matter what, URL is up on the screen right now. We all work for the plant and for people. And therefore we have a common goal. We understand that the assignment is to get this decriminalized and legalized across the board, globally, worldwide, and to try to rest on our laurels, or try to have a scarcity mindset of there's not enough, or I'm going to keep this to myself, is actually hurting you and hurting us when we do that. So I always recommend to people, give away as much free consulting as you can, obviously within limits, so that you're not, abusing yourself or, putting yourself in a bad position. But as long as it's something around decriminalization, legalization, normalization, whatever information you have, share it widely.
Yes, for sure. And coming from a writer's perspective as well, would you say that kind of helped you get that mindset?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely less and less writing is being read. I would say now more it's all Instagram reels and videos like this. So writing and thought leadership is really important, because I think that that's easily shareable. Posting something to LinkedIn or Facebook really gets in front of people's faces, and the language that we use is really important, right? Like, when we're talking about Cali vibes and Cali culture, are we really honoring the genetics and the IP of the old school OG genetic growers and cultivators up in the Emerald Triangle? Are we honoring Humboldt and Mendocino in the ways that we're building this industry, not just by saying their name or trying to pull from their cred, but really making sure that all of these cultivators that are committing suicide in the dozens in Trinity County, Mendocino County, Humboldt County, because their entire livelihoods have been taken away by overregulation. Maybe their plot of land didn't get zoned correctly and they now can't grow, or they can't have normal kind of under the table trim support that they would normally get, and be able to just their normal pro forma and business practices have been completely de-seeded, and without any real support from the financial institutions or the governing bodies about how to become a legitimate business, how to become above board, how to get loans, how to bank when you can't bank, how to advertise and do things legally when we're still a gray to black market substance, as far as media goes. And so really putting our money where our mouth is in media, writing, thought leadership across the board is what's going to move that forward, because really, unfortunately, it's an uneducated customer base and consumer base that's driving the market and driving what strains are being grown, driving the sizes of, THC in every edible. Like, instead of it being coming from the experts and saying, no, these strains are the best for this season, or these strains are the best for these specific medical issues. It's just whatever Wiz Khalifa is smoking on Instagram that day, or whatever new exotic strain is hot. And we're essentially, what it's occurring is a genocide of IP and genetics, which is lowering and culling the diversity of this plant in all of its forms that we really need for, different, for people who have seizures, for people who have specific issues in their bodies that certain cannabinoids produce that are getting bred out when you're just going for high THC. So the way that we talk about things, the way that we produce this information is really going to set the course for how people who are purchasing and going in and talking to bud tenders, their understanding and awareness of what they should actually be looking for and paying for.
Yes, because there's so many, like, it's so interesting, being in the cannabis industry at my age 22, and talking to people. I'm just a writer. I'm not like, you know what I mean. I'm very much a baby in this, as much as I have smoked it before. Uh, but it's just so interesting, talking to my friends and how little information they have about the plant as well. So it really is an uneducated customer base, and like it goes from like sativa, indica, past that to like the terpenes and like what terpenes make the flavors and the tastes and the feelings and all of those very important things. And it's so interesting to see what misconceptions happen about weed because of the lack of information, and the assumptions that happen because they'll be like, oh, weed's just not for me. It's like, well, it could have been that strain that you tried like wasn't going to be helpful for what you were doing, or the environment wasn't helpful for the experience. So it's really cool to see that we're moving forward with cannabis and we're creating consumption lounges. I am so jealous of you that you went to Spanibus and got to experience that, because even I'm trying to go to Las Vegas with the, I think it's Planet 51, right? Yeah,
Planet 13.
Planet 13.
Yeah, the
It's
largest
Planet
in the
51,
world, and it's
Area
open
51.
24 hours.
Yeah, it looks incredible. I've seen like the little flyby, you know what I mean, the promo for it. It's just what a time we are in, like, for real.
Agreed.
What would you say is like the biggest difference, I don't know, in the cannabis industry with in terms of the community, from when you started to now?
Oh man, what a loaded question. The biggest difference is it's just not patient centric, straight up. It's just not patient centric, and we're not even really supposed to be using that term anymore, which is really upsetting to me.
Hmm.
Um, I find that it went from, so this is like what I've been figuring out over the years is um, that, sorry, I'm like looking at myself kind of,
No worries.
um, so there's a triangle. There was the grower, the patient, and the collective or dispensary. Okay, everything flowed from the cultivator. They, like I said before, they would set what was in season, what made sense, the new iteration. Like, they were curating it for us. When you sit down at a sommelier, you expect them to tell you what you want to, like, that's what you want from an expert, is for them to tell
Yeah,
you what's good for you, right? But
a
what's happening
suggestion.
now, what's that?
Oh, I was saying the suggestion, right? It's like
Right,
they're
absolutely. There's like best practices, your recommendations. It's what makes it nice to have experts. And so what got added to that triangle was distribution and retail. That's why I said collective, dispensary, and retail are two different things, right? One represented the customers, and only people that worked there cared about the plant because you were under threat of being raided. If you were growing or had it at your house, you were under threat of having your children being taken from CPS, your dog being shot, being killed or incarcerated for an unknown amount of time, and then have felon disenfranchisement and not be able to secure a job because of that. So that just being a few years ago, and then all these green rushers coming in who just see the numbers, they don't respect the region. They don't put respect on the name of Dennis Perone and Brownie Mary, who were using this to push through medicine for AIDS patients who were wasting away by the tens of thousands in San Francisco in the 90s and in 80s. This has a history, and we typically in the Western world are very ahistoric, very myopic, and we just see what's right in front of us. And so when you objectify and simplify something as complex and dynamic as a medical model for a wide degree of peoples and ages and medical issues, including recreational, because I'm a true believer that there's no such thing as recreational, that even recreational use is a form of getting right in your body or mind, which is medical in a way. You're treating something, whether it's social anxiety or stress from work. People, oh, I just want to kick back. If you really dig down, there's something that they're treating. There's a dis-ease or a imbalance that they want to balance out. That's
Yeah.
up for argument. That's my personal opinion. But to answer your point, to try to just sum that up, what it was in 215 was it was focused on people and the effect, not on the price and on gain. We were giving it away by the bushel. Right now, it's impossible to gift it. Now, even we had to pass SB 34, which allowed for us as companies to be able to gift it because they were still charging us the tax on the full retail value. If I donated $100,000 worth of product, I'd have to pay $25,000 in taxes, even though. So it's you know these incentives and the motivations and the value systems have changed to orient towards profit over
Right.
people, right?
Yeah.
Reputation, is coming before respect, if that makes sense. It's all about the clout and how much people are making, and no one's asking who's being stepped on for these companies to grow in the ways that they are, what kind of investment money is coming in, and who's making the decisions around, is the packaging eco-friendly? Are you hiring Black folks and women? These things get lost when it's not grounded in the plant. This plant is a female plant. It's been grown and harvested by indigenous people and women since the beginning of time. So to flip that and to have a new set of stewards come in and push that through, the plant is not liking it. It's rejecting people. She chooses who she stewards. Her, and it's kind of like the ocean. It's like you don't turn your back to her, you respect her, and you'll have fun in it. If you think that you're bigger than her, you could ride her wave, she's gonna pummel you and you're gonna get a mouthful of sand. And I feel like this industry, unfortunately, is very attractive to people who have corporate greed as a muscle memory, kind of as like as an instinct, as opposed to having the triple bottom line, which is how does this impact the world and how can love be lucrative, not just make money as this consumer packaged goods thing, when really it's like a magical, mystical, medicinal plant that you can't just pretend like it's on a shelf in Whole Foods and treat it like, foot cream. It's not.
Right. And how did you go from like teaching and advocacy into marketing? Was this like rooted in your want for there to be like realistic marketing and like people, telling the truth within the marketing?
I love that. Imagine if marketing was actually based around telling the truth. What I've
Yeah.
learned from marketing is that mostly it's about telling people what they want to hear or what you want them to hear and putting a spin on it. And that's why I really do like taking up the spaces that I take up, because I am a critical eye. I am highly sensitive to language and messaging. I am highly sensitive to the representation of who's the models and what's the story being told and what's the lifestyle being, expressed through our marketing. And absolutely. I mean, with Jetty Extracts, we created the Shelter Project, which gave away free medicine to cancer patients and critically ill people across the state of California with a medical recommendation. We gave away hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of free cannabis, and the marketing, it sold itself. We just used stories of the patients, and let it, kind of tell its own story. And when we were doing our sales pitches and making our Instagram, we would mention it, but it wasn't a major push. We had the advocates and, the people evangelize themselves because they saw the intrinsic and inherent value in it. And so we had little, evangelists around that would be like, oh, you should, this dispensary, you guys should talk to Jetty, they'll drop off a bunch of free stuff. If you can bring in, whoever's ill and can't afford stuff, let them know. They'll hook them up with, if they need CBD, we'll get them CBD. If they wanted a tincture, if they wanted a cartridge, if they wanted a 30-to-1, a 1-to-1, we were literally doing case management based. I think at the height of it, we had 300 or 400 enrolled patients, and we were like delivering it to their doorstep. We were making sure that it was exactly made for them. Like that was really revolutionary. And so I saw that the power of expressing that and sharing that got more people to understand why they should support Jetty as a company. And so that's what really helped me see that marketing storytelling can be for good and can really bring people closer to a purpose. Because really, when you're buying weed, you know it's going to help yourself. But imagine if you know it's also going to like help A, B, and C marginalized person, whatever that may be.
Right.
Cause-based cause-based shopping, like we do with
Yes.
everything else.
Exactly, because like I think that there's been, and it sucks too because if we come to a place like when we're doing well as a nation, I feel like people can spend a lot of time like looking into making sure like these brands are really good, but some people are just, you know what I mean, going with like what's cheaper, and that's unfortunate because, you know what I mean, they're missing out on a lot of things. You know, cheaper doesn't necessarily mean obviously the best, and so there's a lot of things that come with like the discounts too, or like the discounts that you think are happening as well from other places that I've seen, because they're like, well, it's a discount, so you shouldn't get, you know, 100% if that's not what it is. So it's
Right.
interesting, but I really like the fact that you said that it's not just like giving free cannabis to people like that need it. It's like going in and looking at like what do they need help with, you know what I mean, and getting them that specific cannabis because that is super important, right? Because just giving free weed, you know what I mean, to someone that's ill may not necessarily be like their help, but that's really cool that you guys go like beyond that, go the extra mile, or you did at Jetty, and like you just really you went really beyond for those patients. Like I don't think I've heard anything like that other than I talked to Amy Duliage. She's really cool too. She does a lot of free stuff and she's into the medical side of things as well. And she's like making a lot of like strains specifically for like specific ailments and stuff like that. I think when I hear stuff about advocacy in cannabis, it really like makes my heart warm because, you know what I mean? We seem like we're moving along, you know, kind of in the industry, and although we're not at full legalization yet, we're still out here like doing more for the people that need it. Even if we're not there yet, you know what I mean? It's about doing things like along the way. That's really important for the people that need it the most to, you know what I mean, get on board and get that help too. It's really cool. I find it really cool. Can you tell us some more about the Bloom Network Compassion Program?
Yeah, absolutely. So William Sump, the founder of Full Spectrum Republic and Bloom Network, which is a distribution service based out of Santa Cruz, and I think they might still operate a little bit out of Lonto too. But he was worked with Lanny Swerdlow, who was part of the Brownie Mary Democratic Social Club, that was basically brought awareness around the issues of the gay community, the AIDS stricken community, and just the patient community in general, and was one of the first people in the Central Valley to get a dispensary permit back in the day in the 215 era. So he's been in the game for a really long time, despite being quite young. He's in his early 30s, but he's an OG, and he made as part of his mission that they would give unlimited. I still to this day have seen them put a limit on how much they give away per store. It's based on for like Three Brothers, for example, in Santa Cruz, like they give us a list of 20 to 50 patients and we get them cartridges and concentrates and things like that. Like I said with Jetty, that's that similar kind of what do you need, we got you. And he's just had that built into the DNA of their business plan and their pro forma, so that it is something that's scalable and sustainable, and that as new people come in, they understand this is part of our culture. If you ever go around to a dispensary and you know that they have a compassion program or that they need one, or you hear that someone can't afford something, you're like, hey, Bloom Network manages the manifest, like they deliver it, they do all the paperwork, and they don't just do it for cred. They do it because they truly know that legalization cut a lot of people, veterans and low income people and poverty class people, that now also cannot grow because they either are not housed in a stable place, or the law has changed from 6 plants per person to 6 plants per household. And maybe the person they're living with already has their plans going, or their landlord does or something, or they can't, or they live with their landlord and they can't grow. There's a lot of reasons why access has died. And so this is
Mhm.
not just like doing good to feel good. It's like, no, this is literally mission critical. There are people that are, overdosing on opioids, that are regressing back into cancer. This is not just people miss getting high. This is we after the shelter project shut down during Prop 64, when we were waiting for SB 30, sorry, Prop 64. We were waiting for SB 34 to come through, which allowed us to do those donations tax free. We multiple of our patients that were sustaining on RSO and things that we were giving them full extract cannabis oil. And like I said, it wasn't just Jetty products. It was, we would source them and make them and to basically distribute them through our distribution, Jetty distribution. Died, straight up died. And these are people that we had been working with for 4, 5, 6 years, that we were keeping steady. And all of a sudden, within 4 or 5 months, they got way worse. And within the first year, we had a dozen patients that were stable, otherwise stable, die. So this is just my lived experience. I didn't read it somewhere. I didn't hear about it secondhand. I know of people who have lost their lives because of the way that tax control and regulate killed California compassion.
Yeah, and are there any other advocacy groups that you also are represent or are like super proud of?
Yeah, Operation EVAC, educating veterans about cannabis. They do multiple a week support groups via Zoom. They just started resuming their in-person meetings as well, and they do quarterly compassionate give outs. They just gave out like a few pounds of weed, and they're going to give another one out in a couple months in June or something, May or June. And they do veterans walk and talk as well, which is led by the one in the Bay Area is led by Sochi, who is a two-spirit trans veteran elder who runs weekly or monthly walk and talks for veterans to get out and just connect. They're really
Hmm.
amazing as well. They're both charities that work with cannabis and vets. Also, there's a nonprofit that I work with called the Cannabis Trail, led by Brian Applegarth, and Zach Darling and I are helping advise him in the early stages. But it's basically to mark landmarks and people who are kind of the people that are responsible for setting up California cannabis the way that we know it, the way that you would go through any other kind of a tourist trail. And along with that, there's going to be a curriculum for bud tenders for them to get trained so that they can be accredited as, California cannabis trail certified experts, so that they learn about the history of Brownie Mary and Prop 215, and that they learn about all these different historic sites and honor the Emerald Triangle, and kind of a sommelier type program, but on the more social justice side, and making sure that when you're serving people as a bud tender or as a buyer, that you have been trained, or that your dispensary paid for you to go through this program to show that you actually have like a historic knowledge and some kind of an exam that you've taken that shows that you've studied it, that you intrinsically understand these things, and you're a responsible advocate for it at the retail level. So those are just the first two that are coming to mind right now, or the first couple of groups. But definitely hit me up. I see that you have my handles here. Luna Stower and Healers Not Dealers are the ones that I manage, and I will get back to you if you guys have any questions about where you can give donations, where you can volunteer, where you can show up, places that you can sign up for. Obviously, you should, definitely get active on Clubhouse, Facebook, get on the normal and the NCIA mailing list, LinkedIn, I know it sounds weird for those of you who are not on LinkedIn. I know it sounds really corporate and weird, but it's actually very cannabis friendly, more cannabis friendly than any other platform that we have on social media. It's the
For sure.
least likely to ban and shadow ban us. So get on LinkedIn. You're able to post whatever you want without being censored and without being blocked or banned. And it's also the best way to find out who in the industry are actually real leaders and real doers, instead of these kind of fly by night random folks. Like, you can vet like, oh, I have 400 people in common with them. They obviously are a cannabis person, instead of it being some like
Right.
weird sales rep from China trying to spam you, or someone that's like not real. So that's the ways that I've been kind of keeping up in things and following the people that are doing the right things, and honestly unfollowing people that are not. Like, there's brands out there that don't use honest marketing, that aren't making good products. I don't give them airtime. I don't follow them. I don't reshare them. I don't go to their parties. I try. There's so much good work being done by good people in the space that we can be picky about who we associate ourselves with.
For sure. Is there any other products like that from Ispire that you would love to shout out?
Yeah, definitely. Our dab. We have a dab unit. I have it downstairs. If you want, should I just talk about it, or should I go grab it? It's okay. I'll take a dab. Maybe I'll take a dab with you guys.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
So our parent company, Aspire, was the first to market with the vertical coil vape pen. So essentially, our founder was the first put like modern vape on the map, um,
Wow.
and which is fabulous, and we're super proud of it. And so this is our dab rig, and so he came to the U.S. and saw that we were all using these, and they were like, he was like, wait. Butane and flame, that sounds dangerous. And like you could burn yourself because then everything gets hot. So he created two things. He created the wand, which is a torch replacement tool, and the dab. Both of these use induction heating, so it only uses
Mm.
electromagnetic. So there's no atomizer, there's no coil, and there's no chance of getting burned. Also, in addition to that, it's precise heating. So between 250 degrees and 800 degrees, you can get precise, instead of it just being a certain color coming up on most e-nails and e-rigs, you don't know exactly what temperature you're getting. So if I know that I like my dab, if you saw it, really quick. By the way, I'm a judge for the Emerald Cup, so I have all kinds of amazing stuff. This is from Oakland Extracts. So it heats up in about 10 seconds. When the light is steady, your dab is ready. You just put it right in. There we go.
I love
And
this.
like I said, there's no atomizer or anything. So it's an all glass airway. So when I hit this, I'm not breathing in any off gassing from any coil.
Wow.
It's a clean hit, consistent every time. It just turned off, still stays a little warm.
And that's so fast too, because imagine you gotta sit there heating up the thing and you never yeah, so much easier. Wow,
And then
I
you
love
need to have
that.
like a dab right or a thermometer to find out what temperature it's at. It's a big headache. So for folks who really know their stuff and want a quick dab, like a working woman like me who just needs a dab, that took 10 seconds to heat up. It's what's up.
That
So
is what's up.
these are the products I'm most excited about because it uses induction heating, and no one really in the US is that into induction. But in the
Mm.
entire world, that's how the majority of the world cooks, and the majority of the world heats things. It's way safer, way more energy efficient, and also this saves on the concentrate as well, because you're not just burning it off willy-nilly, or you don't have to clean it up immediately because it's in borosilicate, so you don't have to sop it up immediately like you would off of like a hot quartz. Or so there's a lot of benefits. There's no like replacement parts. I mean, if you drop something and break it, we'll replace it, but it's not like other e-rigs where you have to replace the atomizer every couple of months. So
Mm.
for me as a user who doesn't want to spend $80 every 2 months for a new unit that's just going to break down, I've had the same one for a year and I've never had to, all I do is just recharge it. And it's super easy to clean. And it's not just because I work for the company. I'm an actual dabber. Like, I don't know if you can see this, but I have so many rigs and so much stuff. Like, this is
She's a
all
pro.
dab stuff. And then these buckets, all dab stuff. This all cartridges. Like, my life revolves. This is all my Emerald Cup judging stuff. My life revolves around concentrate. So I'm not just like doing this for fun. Like I said from the beginning, I'm a patient first.
Right.
So if it doesn't work for me, I'm not going to sell it. I'm not going to tell other people to spend $300 on it and buy it.
For sure. And I wanted to ask you about the Emerald Cup. How did you get connected into doing like testing or judging? Like, how do you even get into that? Because that's like a total dream for a lot of people.
Special invite only. I've been attending it as an attendee for probably since 2014, 15. So it's been almost 10 years. I've been in cartridge sales since 2014. So that's part of why I'm judging the cartridge part of the competition. But also Tim and the team are very heavy into advocating for plant medicine. And I was part of Decriminalize Oakland, which was a movement to decriminalize entheogens in the city of Oakland. So we passed it. It was after Denver, right before Santa Cruz did it, which means that if you are possessing or using psilocybin, ayahuasca, any of these kind of plant-based entheogens that are traditionally used, like peyote and other things that are wachuma, which is also known as San Pedro, mescaline based and DMT based typically, or psilocybin based. Those are the main classes. But really, that advocacy allowed them or showed them that what I'm doing is a little bit bigger too as well. So we've been connecting more on that level. But really, there's a whole board of people that you apply, and I've applied every year for like 6 years. And this year, I think they opened up another couple of spots and also some new categories. So it allowed some new folks to come in, because usually the judges, once you're a judge, you stay a judge unless something happens. But it's like one, honestly, like no, like lightweight, one of the biggest honors of my life. And I've had like some pretty special, really mind alteringly special honors. Being chosen as an Emerald Cup judge it means that they care, that like to know deeply what the end consumer needs is such a sweet spot that no market research or focus group can come to, right? So, or like to know what a buyer needs to sell through. Like when I'm looking at this, my scorecard is packaging, labeling, oil appearance, hardware, taste, experience slash effect, and uniqueness.
Mm.
So these are the things that it's bringing in: compliance. It's bringing in shelf appeal of the oil itself. How does it look? Does it look yummy? Do you want to hit it? How does it taste? How does it make you feel? Like, and they're all weighted differently, right? Like we're weighing experience and taste the most, because that's really what we already know is our most important things as a consumer. It's in the data. It's literally like 95% of people leaving a dispensary will say that the reason why, and same thing with a bud tender, they're like, yeah, it's strawberry cough and I love strawberry. It's the same reason why people use the e-cig vapes. They like the nicotine, but really they're all about the bubble gum or whatever the flavor is. So they're really
Right.
leaning heavily into what people need out of this plant. And I think that that's what all businesses need to do. The Emerald Cup doesn't really care. It just wants to show it's a blue ribbon farmers market is what it is. Area 101 was a place for people to get weird and talk about aliens and bring out the best genetics and smoke each other's weed and be like, oh, you didn't cure this long enough, or man, you didn't flush the newts out of the roots for more than 2 weeks. This tastes like a 1 week flush. Like I grew up on. I grew up going and trimming and sitting with all the people every summer. You were working the plants. Fall, you were cutting the plants and bucking the plants. Winter break, this is while I was a teacher and while I was a student, whether I was in college or teaching. You then go up and you trim it, you broker it, you sell it, and then in the spring you plant, and you do it because we do outdoor. We go with the seasons. We go with the nature of the plant. So that's why I love the Emerald Cup and all the people involved in it, is because they're people who listen to the nature of the plant and emulate and respect and buoy that message over their own personal. They don't wear brands across their chests. They work for the seeds. That's why I will always give everything till my dying breath, no matter how special hardware is to me and unique and important it is to me as a working professional who doesn't know what I do without a vape pen. So I do support the technological advancements of it. At the end of the day, it's the people with the dirt under their nails and the almanac at their bed, sitting with their plants, singing to their plants, shitting in holes, sleeping with shotguns with pit bulls, waiting for a helicopter to come over. That's the cannabis industry. And if people don't know that and don't respect it, ask somebody.
Yeah. It's literally crazy how much goes into it, because there's so many people that go unseen, right? Because you mostly just see it from the perspective of like whether you're in the dispo or whether you're just like, you know what I mean, getting on the street. You don't see the full process. You don't see everything that goes into it. So it is important to have that visibility on like the lives that are literally at stake for the plant.
Yes.
And if we go around and we just try to like, you know what I mean, just try to make off money off of it. Sorry, I'm trying to plug my computer and it just gave me a little notification. But if we mess around and we just really don't give the plant credit where it's due to, it's hard for those people to keep working for it. I mean, there's people killing themselves, like they're just not being seen, they're not being taken care of. So there's a lot of things that need to be done for those people. How can people get educated on, those jobs before they go in them, would you say like LinkedIn is a good place? Because I feel like I don't know enough about
Yeah,
how.
yeah, go on LinkedIn, hit up Flower Hire, hit up Vankst, go to some agencies and just ask them, "Hey, when's the next career fair? When's your next event? I want to get in the space." And they'll be like, "Yeah, here's our newsletter, like watch our blogs." There's so much content out there, like there's so many inroads. I just honestly, everyone always tries to get into it through retail. Don't get into it through retail. Bring your skills to a cannabis industry. Usually, hate to say it, LA and New York. If you want a job in cannabis, if you really want my advice,
Yeah, 100%. I'm always asking for advice.
go into the creative agencies and the social media influencing spaces in New York and LA in cannabis. They are actually monetizing it because they're creating they're doing their own events and they have their own tastemakers and have their own vibe and they're they bring in investment and risk takers, those two cities for some reason. I'm not necessarily, I mean, like I live in Oakland. I'm very happy in San Leandro and in the East Bay where I'm from. I love this place. But I work in LA. We're based out of Venice and Torrance, so I'm an LA girl too. So I get both sides. But if you want to actually get paid right now, the people who have the vision and the gusto behind it and the actual financial backing and stick-to-itiveness, and you're not going to get laid off or whatever, you can't go immediately into plant touching necessarily unless you want to not be able to get a loan. Like, I hate to be your neurotic Jewish mother about this, but if people want to get really granular and get really good advice, try not to have your paycheck come from an address that's associated with a license holding business in that state. For example, California, when I was working for Jetty Extracts, I could not get a loan for my house until I had
Really?
a new employer. Absolutely. You're not eligible for a loan. You're getting money from a federally illegal substance. It pings it in. Penny Mac and Freddie Mae wouldn't touch me with a 10-foot pole. They found me online. They did online research and were like, "We know what you do. Bye." I'm Instacanna famous. Okay, what can I
Oh
say?
my
So,
gosh.
so don't be like me.
Yeah.
Work for a company first, like a media company. Bring, do whatever you do in your life and your love, but like do it just from a distance if you're not in the plant yet, because this plant will kick your tush if you don't know what this space is. And people like me who are so nice and loving and very welcoming in middle school teachery. We will literally say, when people ask me, what do you say to people wanting to get into the industry? I tell them, don't. If you're
Yeah.
not already in it, we're full. The dance
You
card's
have
full.
to, like, in order to be in like the cannabis industry, like 100%, you have to like literally give your life to the plant. Because which I
Yeah.
didn't even know. I didn't even know that like you can't get a loan even if you're just like associated or you like work with them, even if you're not even.
You're not eligible for PPP loans. If my 1099 had been tied to Jetty and not my own LLC, I would have not gotten PPP loans. I would not. You can't, as a cannabis business, you can't get insurance. You pay taxes for the cops, but they don't come if you get robbed or if you need them to come through. You cannot get 280E is a normal business tax write-off that any business does, and it is literally make or break for any business, regardless of what industry you're in. We cannot write off employee taxes. We cannot write off our payroll taxes. It's called 280E because we are cannabis businesses. So now you've got businesses that can't bank, and we have to sit on our money because we can't put it in a bank. So we're sitting ducks for people to come jack us. And when we call the cops, they say, give us double middle fingers and say, go F yourself with our tax money. That's what it's like to be a cannabis business in Oakland, at
Yeah,
least.
the barrier to entry is actually insane because you literally have to have so much startup capital on your own in order to get the business. And I've even heard from business owners like you have to literally have the business running, the lights going in order to even get the license. Like you have to have things like
Two,
going
3 mil,
first.
2, 3, 4 mil just to burn before you even make money. Barriers
Yeah.
to entry is a beautiful way to say it.
So
And it's insidious too, because they will take your money. The cities and counties will accept application fees knowing you're not eligible or knowing they won't. And then the second they get it, they go, sorry, because it's non-negotiable, blah, blah, blah. Like they're petty and desperate for money because a lot of these places are in rural. I mean, we're all hit by an economy, right? That's what fuels the prison industrial complex is scarcity and poverty mindset. And unfortunately, democratically run states. I don't know. I don't know what any of this means anymore.
Yeah.
But in
So
California, I will say it's still the best weed and it's the best place to be. So if you can make it in Cali, you can make it anywhere. It's like the bar exam is like, California bar exam. If you do that, you can like practice law anywhere. It's like that for weed.
no, for sure, because that's like where the culture really. I mean, for America, you really think like California, Cali Kush. You know what I mean? You don't think Florida Kush, you think Cali Kush, 100%.
It's
Um,
ubiquitous.
Yes, and it's so it like I'm living all the way on the other side of the states in Florida, just kind of sitting back and like waiting and hoping that there's like a reason to bring me to Cali too, other than like obviously the really cool like events that go on, because Orlando's completely lacks.
That's
Like you
awesome.
have to go all the way to Miami, you know what I mean, to do anything. I heard Canadelic just happened. But it's like there needs to be more in Orlando because there is like there's a bunch of dispos. We're still medical, so that's why the culture's not completely there. But that doesn't mean we can't start early. You know what I mean? I really
Hey,
want to,
D8's blowing up there.
huh?
D8's blowing up there. Delta 8, hemp
Oh
derived.
yeah. Oh for sure. And I'm like a little wary of Delta 8. I've had some Delta 8 before, but like it comes from, you know what I mean, a smoke shop or where I've gotten it before. So I'm still like, you know what I mean, I'm still like a little scared. I want to get it from somebody like, you know what I
Hit
mean,
me up.
nice and like
Hit me
that.
up. We know all the Delta 8 companies, and I'll tell you if they're
Okay, good.
because they
Okay,
do
good.
fudge their COAs because they're not regulated, right? So they don't go through a
Right.
state. They're unregulated, completely unregulated.
Yeah, it just gives me like a little bit of a because I watch a lot of Vice, you know what I mean? I've seen, the stuff that happens in Europe with like I don't even know, it was like spice or something like that. It was like
Yes, yes.
weed-ish, but it was like synthetic. And you know what I mean? It was like to get around, it was like smoking weed, but it's not weed. And so when
Totally.
Delta 8 came around in the States, I was a little bit wary, but I knew that like Delta 8 and Delta 9, there's not that big of a difference.
Right.
But I was just still wary because it was coming from smoke shops and not necessarily like a
Smart.
place that,
Very
you know,
smart.
yeah. But there's a lot of people that don't even think about it. They're like, oh, I can't buy weed. I'm just gonna buy Delta 8. That's like the next best thing. You know what I
You're
mean?
also buying
So
the nasty hot dog that's been sitting out there with 5 different kinds of animal guts in it, like, and love it with things on it in a thing.
yeah, and it is like totally we've gone from like a community that cares about you know what I mean, all those things to just convenience. You know what I mean? What's
Right.
lying around? What's
Wellness.
next to
Bring the
me?
wellness back.
Right. That's the most important part because like there's so many things we're taking in like oh like this thing's bad for you, this causes cancer, like we're taking selective listening too much into, and we're not like doing research, like we're only taking in what we hear,
Yeah, a little
and
sound
it's
bite.
not going forward, which is like you know what I mean, like even thinking to research something, it's like trusting that
Wild.
the businesses have your best interest in mind, and then which is like haha, but you know what I mean, it doesn't happen every time, but there's a lot of people that will just you know what I mean, it's the next best thing, sounds good, they're selling it at the store, I should buy it. So there really is a lack of you know what I mean, questioning when it comes to this stuff, and it's really unfortunate because we're going to go down the line and we're going to see there's going to be scandals that come up with companies that didn't care about quality, that didn't care about these things, and
Right.
we're going to be like, did I smoke that? I think I did, you know what I mean, and
Nice
you're
smile, man.
yeah, and you know what I mean. It's really you really got to care about your health in these things, and trust like the right companies and do your research because you really can get burned in the future. You really know. You know what I mean? Just because you're getting weed doesn't mean it's coming from the right people and that have the right interests in mind, like we were talking about earlier. Um, what would you say are like the best ways good cannabis brands can like market themselves? Because what I've seen is mostly just having like a story, I'd say, and obviously showing how much you really care about the plant is one way. But other than that, like what social medias would you say other than like I know we talked about LinkedIn, but yeah.
I'm on the Instas pretty much all the time, like a proper millennial. So you can find me at Luna_Stower if you want to also follow my other pages. They're all in my bio. Um, yeah, honestly, like you can find me just by Googling Luna Stower.
How do you go about like doing weed things on Instagram? Because it's pretty tough out here.
I'm an educator. I'm not, I might be loosely promoting the use that could be construed at some point, but I'm not overtly selling. I'm not putting
Mm,
links to a sell through page. I don't have any sales related stuff. I don't put pricing or use the word sell or hashtag anything. I try to stay. I actually just lost my account recently. They said it was a mistake. It was the first time in
happens
like
to the best of us.
or no girl, I've been on it since before since I bet I bet your age group actually hold on how they
I'm
were
22.
this was 12 this was 2010. So this was
Okay.
11 years ago and they were like 14. They were like freshmen and they introduced me to Instagram like before anyone my age was on it because I was teaching
Wow.
high school.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
anyway, in the whole time I was private. And then I just went public for the past few years to be in cannabis because that's how you build like branding is you just like share who you are. It's like part of being radically
Yeah.
honest. Like you just come out of the closet. And you just, I
Right.
love that. I love
Yeah,
being,
for sure, for sure. Because everybody's smoking in the background. Not everybody's posting about it because sometimes they feel the type of way. Everybody's posting, maybe a little drink at the bar. But when it comes to weed,
Mhm.
that is definitely a coming out for sure on social media. I've tried on TikTok. I completely failed. I got my account like banned for a week because I was trying to show off my face. Trying to learn all of the words on there. It's really hard. Like the censorship is kind of annoying and kind of crazy. I just heard Cookies is coming out with a whole social app. I think it's called. Oh man, what's it called? I had a better name in my head for it. I came up with like Buds. I was gonna call it Buds if they talked to me about their brand, but they called it something. Oh, they called it the Social Club. It's called the
Oh yeah,
Social
yeah, yeah.
Club
Which is
app.
kind of funny because that's what their store in Barcelona they're called social clubs. That's the name.
Oh,
Remember I was telling you
okay.
about these clubs?
Yes,
It's like the
yes.
old 215 collective vibe where you could consume on site. That's what changed in 64 that you probably didn't get to partake in. Did you? No. You weren't 18
No,
during 215. Man,
no, man. I was 15. You can go. That's the cool thing about being born. I was born in 1999, so every year, like, I'm pretty much the same. I know. I know. People are
you're
still being born. It's
you're
crazy.
you're badass. You remind me of myself a lot actually.
Thank you. Yeah,
Well, I'm
I'm.
38 this summer, so keep it lit,
You
homie.
just turned 28.
No, I'm gonna turn 38 this summer.
You don't even look. You literally look. You could be like. No, honestly. When it comes to age, though, like this whole age thing to me, like honestly, I see everybody as like 20 in my head. I don't know.
I know,
Even you could be like 80 years old. I still see you as 20, especially
I
if
know.
you like, you know what I mean. If you interact that way.
That's
But I
awesome.
feel like since the internet, we can all just kind of like. There's been like an age gap that's been like kind of kicked out for us because of social media and being able to like relate on that platform. And I love seeing like all different kinds of ages. I love seeing, you know what I mean? I've seen like you know what I mean, the grandmas smoking weed. I've seen like all different types of people, you know what I mean, on
They're the
social
best.
media, and it's beautiful. You know what I mean? Because it's
Absolutely.
hard. Because it's hard sometimes. Like if you're out in real life trying to bring up, you know what I mean, a conversation outside of social media, it's a lot harder because you're just going off of looks. But if you go off of somebody's whole account and like, oh, you're a safe person, you like to talk about weed, we can talk about weed. Then it's a lot easier to make those connections, which I like
Amen.
social media a lot. Yeah. So you're on Clubhouse. That's really cool. When did you get into it?
Just during COVID, everyone on cannabis was like, "Come on Clubhouse." I'm like, "Fine." And then I like got
Yeah.
an iPod Touch because I'm not an iPhone user, so it like
Mm.
wasn't available to me. So I like got a little iPod Touch and was like using it just to like talk to my friends. And I was like, "I'll be good." And then right after I got it, they came out for Android. It's cute. I love words. I love hearing people. I love voice. I love radio. I love my people. I love hearing. I love being heard and hearing. It's a beautiful
Yeah.
thing.
I think Clubhouse
We're
is
at
such
the
a
hour
cool app.
mark. Are we saying goodbye?
Oh my god, in 3 minutes? Yeah. Oh my. I literally usually pay attention to the time. We've been talking like so much. I completely
Podcast.
forgot, but we have 3 minutes. Very sad, but we've been learning so much from you
I'll come
today.
back again. We'll do another one.
Yes, 1,000,000%. So to close out, is there any last advice that you can give for female entrepreneurs or any kind of brands you want to shout out other than your own?
Definitely check out like women empowered in cannabis and find local chapters of like I don't know if I would say women grow, but like some like network with women in any way you can. I'm trying to
That's
think
what
of
this show
really
is all about too.
really well. I'm blanking right now. There's actually a lot that are doing. Oh, Moon Maid Farms. Tina Gordon is super inspiring. She's also a drummer. Garden Society is run by women. Nina Parks is really inspiring. Follow Nina. She's a gift of Doja, um,
Mm.
and she's on the board of Supernova Women. And yeah, I would just say definitely like follow if you're curious about stuff, follow me because honestly all this stuff comes up in my stories. I'm always linking people to stuff. If you have any questions or want to see where things are going, like I always share things like it's kind of a news feed in a lot of ways for the culture. I hope I share things that I hope are relevant to people.
No, for sure. Well, Luna, it's been awesome having you on the show. We still have 5 people around. It's been awesome. They've been tuning in.
Thanks for hanging out,
Well,
guys. I haven't seen any. Anyone said anything? No.
yeah, they've been talking a little bit.
What?
They've been singing your praises. They've been saying you're a
Sweet.
lovely guest.
Nothing.
Yes, it's
Send
been
me a
wonderful.
straight
We'll definitely have you
transcript.
back on because I'm sure there's so much more we can talk about.
Of
But
course. Appreciate
thank
you
you so much
so
for
much.
coming on. It's been wonderful talking to you.
Likewise. Have a good one.
You too.